Hi, my name is V. I make sewing content along with other things, and today I'm going to be trying to recreate this $300 dress from Anthropologie. I giggled a little bit there because I feel like $300 for a dress is kind of absurd, and I saw some of the reviews and it respectfully didn't look that high quality of like material or structure, so I just thought it would probably be better to make this dress myself. I really did though like the design of this dress. I feel like I've never really seen seams that have like gone diagonally like that, and then that bust area where the dart is like folded in on itself and has that straight grain. I don't know if that made any sense, but that really made me want to recreate this dress because it looks challenging but simple enough, and so I think I can do it. I just so conveniently have this really pretty green satin. So I lied, I didn't end up using this fabric. I ended up using a pink fabric instead, so you'll see that. Yeah, hopefully that doesn't confuse you guys, but I have an explanation for it later. I think I have 2 yards of this. Hopefully this will be enough. If not, I can always go get more, I guess, but I always get nervous on like the skirt, especially because I feel like I always use more fabric than I need. So anyway, we definitely have to hope for the best with the amount that we have. I'm going to be making this dress from scratch from my dress form. I'll just be draping, probably doing a couple of toiles before I finally get to the final one. I don't really have anything that I'm wearing this to though, so this is probably just going to be an addition to my wardrobe in case a formal day comes and I need to wear something. Anyway, let's get on with the video. I'm going to start draping my dress, and I'm trying out to use washi tape instead because people say that it sticks better than like designer tape, but it's like double the thickness, so not sure if I'm loving it, and it's honestly not sticking that much better. I'm definitely gonna have to be consistent with like where I do my markings, because if I do it on like one side of the tape versus the other, it might not turn out the best. But yeah, I'm going to drape this and see how it goes. Okay, as you can see in the last clip, I finished marking out all of my style lines last night. Please don't use my video as a tutorial. I would definitely recommend you guys to go find other trusted people that probably have a degree. I don't. But yeah, I'm just showing you guys the way that I'm doing it. So now I'm gonna take a piece of muslin here, and one of the edges are folded on the straight grain, and I'm literally just going to start placing it on here. And I'm showing you guys this front bodice piece because I think this is gonna be the hardest part. And that's because of the really interesting like straight grain that we have here, like the straight dart. So I'm gonna show you guys how I'm gonna do that. So anyway, I'm just smoothing out my muslin and making sure that all of my excess fabric goes toward the front because that's where the dart is gonna be. And yeah, just smoothing everything out. I know you guys can't really see the tape because I use yellow tape, probably not my best work, but it goes right along here toward the nipple. And the dart is gonna be like this way. I wanna add here that this isn't a dart really that I'm making. Like it's acting like a dart, but I ended up sewing it like a normal seam, if that makes any sense. Like you'll see it during the sewing process, but in the moment when I was draping it, like the dart made the most sense and it did help me figure out the actual design. But like I said, when going back to like the actual sewing part of the dress, I didn't physically sew on a dart. That dart was just a placeholder for like until I figured out the seam and where to sew the seam. Like that. Okay, so now that we have this all smoothed, just gonna make sure that there's no excess anything anywhere. And I'm gonna go ahead and just cut a little bit where this bust piece probably is not going to reach. So this is where we're at. So now what I'm gonna do, so my lines go like here, and I'm going to take this piece here and fold it as if I was folding a dart. So now we have this straight dart, and it took in all of that excess fabric that I pushed over on this side. Still a little bit of puckering by the nipple area, but that's because the dart actually starts at like on the nipple, and usually that doesn't happen. Also, if anybody has any styling tape recommendations, please let me know, because I'm trying to use washi tape because people recommend washi tape over actual styling tape because it sticks, but mine has not been sticking. So Not sure what I'm doing wrong here, but all right, so now that everything is flat and where I want it to be, I'm literally just gonna take your heat erasable pen. You can just use even like a regular pen or pencil, and I'm gonna start making dots following my style lines. Because my style lines are very thick, I am being very cognizant of where I'm putting them. All right, so now that I'm done marking everything, I'm going to take my piece here and do what's called truing, which is basically like taking this, using rulers, using curved rulers, and just straightening out all of the seams. I don't know if you can really see all the red markings on there, but I'm just gonna go ahead and straighten that out and cut it, and then we'll transfer it to paper so that we can actually make a true mock-up. But yeah, you just repeat that for all of the steps here. So I usually do all of the front bodice pieces first, and then I'll move on to the back. Okay, I finished draping my front bodice pieces and I put them on my dress form to see if I needed to make any adjustments, which I may need to make a really small one on the sides. If you can tell, my side seams aren't really matching up here, and I think I just need to extend this front piece more, so I'm going to do that and just roughly draw a line here, and then I'll extend that with my ruler. This part right here also seems like there's a little too much fabric, so I'll probably take this in. So I'll make those adjustments, and then I'm gonna finish draping the back, and then we can start sewing a muslin prototype with some seam allowance. Okay, that took such a long time, but I had to add a lot more clips in here, but now it completely lays flat and there's no puckering or anything. And that was definitely probably the hardest piece I had to do yet for this project. The other ones were pretty straightforward, but this one took a lot of maneuvering. Okay, I finished sewing the first mock-up, and I think it turned out pretty good. There are a couple of notes. The neckline is gaping a little bit, so I need to fix that. And I also did realize that I didn't make this as dropped waist as the original dress, and I think I want to make it a little more dropped. So I might do a couple of revisions for that. One of the sides, like, the seams don't really match up very well, so I need to keep that in mind when I'm sewing. And also I'm gonna finish up the seam allowances nicely so there's not like these random triangles popping out. But I think this was a very good first mock-up. Like, the back I think turned out great. But yeah, I learned a lot about how to construct this, and it's honestly turning out pretty good. All right, this is toile number 2, and I fixed the gaping neckline so it looks pretty good now. And I also extended the waist down so it's longer and more dropped. And here's the back, pretty good. I do have a couple things I want to adjust again, but they're mainly like more technical stuff. Like, if you see this hole, I realized I needed to extend this piece as well. Forgot to do that. This is so much better than yesterday. I rewatched the footage from yesterday and realized there was like a bunch of bunching around because it was really tight. I did end up decreasing the seam allowance from 1/2 inch to 3/8 of an inch, and that helped a lot, and it added way more room. And I think that this is turning out really good. I'm so happy and proud of myself that I figured out this bust seam right here, because that was a total nightmare in the beginning. I'm gonna go ahead and fix the pattern pieces, and then hopefully once I figure that out, I'll do another toile, but this time in satin, to see how it all lays. I also did have trouble with some seams lining up here and there, so I'm gonna go back and make sure that they're all the same length and whatnot. And so yeah, once I do that, I'll go ahead and do the satin toile. So I'll be back. This is the third prototype. Figured out like where I need to add more take some more off, etc. So this was more like for patterning technicalities, I guess, rather than like actually trying it on, because we already determined from my last one that it fit fine. It's just the small things I needed to make adjustments for. The other fun thing is that I learned how to digitize my patterns. I was actually able to make adjustments to the digital pattern, and now I think I'm ready to sew like an actual prototype with satin. But yeah, I'm so happy with my pattern pieces. They turned out really well, and it was a lot easier than I thought. It did take me a couple hours to figure out how to use Adobe Illustrator, and still now I'm sure there's so much more that I don't know. But my skills are enough to, you know, figure these out, so I'm proud. Also, one more side note, do you guys see this thing hanging up from my Juki machine right now? I got a spool thread holder for this machine, which is life-changing because I use white thread all the time, and I think I run out of these little spools like probably every week. So the fact that I can use cones is such a game changer, and like I'm so glad Juki had that part. I'm so glad I figured out that they had one for my machine. It's been awesome. Okay, I have my first satin prototype here. Couple things as always. The skirt pattern I did not draft out very well. A lot of fullness on the sides, not enough in the front, so I fixed that. So that's definitely like probably the biggest thing from this. But I really love how the bodice turned out. I think the seams look really nice. I think this color isn't really doing the design justice because you can't really see the seams very well. But I also moved this neckline closer to the armhole by like an inch because I realized that that would probably be more flattering with it covering any like excess side boob. And clearly I didn't do the straps with the blue satin. I cut out the wrong length because I thought I measured it, but I didn't measure it very well, so I had to replace it with something really quickly. But I do plan on making these like adjustable and using like adjuster sliders for it, so for the straps, so yeah. My zipper also broke in the process, so I didn't really care to line up the seams, but definitely will. I do think I'm gonna make another prototype again. I just had to change so many things, and I'm honestly not confident in my digital pattern making, which is all I did for the skirt, so I just want to make sure it's perfect, and I honestly do have a lot of satin laying around that I could use, so we're gonna do that. For the lining, I just used like this silk white lining that I had, and it honestly worked out pretty good, so I'll probably use that again. The other thing though that was pretty concerning was that it was pretty tight around my waist, and I didn't want that, so I'm gonna be really, really cautious when I'm sewing and making sure that I'm doing 3/8 of an inch, no more. Because when I did that on my muslin, it fit me perfect and there was no bunching, but this dress, when it zipped up, it didn't. So I also added a 1/2 inch on the back for the zipper, so hopefully that would also help with the tightness of the waist. And other than that, I'm really happy with it. I know I just named like 50,000 things, but I'm actually pretty happy with it. I think the bodice turned out really nice and it looks really well with the satin. But yeah, I really do have to make all of these. I did make all of the adjustments to the seams to make sure that they're lining up well, and yeah, there's just a lot that goes into pattern making, and I'm honestly gaining a lot of appreciation for it, so yeah, let me sew up this next prototype and hope it goes well. All right, it's been a week since I've finished sewing this prototype, and I'm finally able to show you guys. This process has taken me a lot longer than I thought it was going to, but you know, as a full-time student, I feel like I have respectfully other priorities. But here's the dress, and you guys can't really see the bottom of the dress very well, but it's not hemmed, so nothing much to see. I am really, really happy with the bodice. I feel like the bodice is perfect. This is exactly how I want it. The skirt, however, needs a couple of tweaks as per usual. This is my first time like flat patterning and doing all of my adjustments on like Adobe Illustrator and not like IRL. So there's a big learning curve, so I'm kind of just soaking in the process and letting this project take time because I'm learning a lot about digitizing patterns and like flat patterning, so I'm gonna give myself some grace. The skirt, as you can tell, there's a lot of volume on the sides and it's kind of like caving in, and I don't think that that excess volume is needed. So I went ahead and changed that on my pattern. And as you can tell, it also is a little bit tighter around the waist, which is making the bodice ride up. I want it to kind of like flow nicely, like kind of as one piece. The skirt flows great, but I think right here, because it's a little constricted, it's not flowing as one very well. I can tell with like my straps too, they're falling off. Like no matter how much I will adjust it, they're falling off because it's super tight here, so the rest of the fabric kind of wants to like stay upwards. Like I can't really pull it down and keep it down. So I adjusted the pattern so that there's more space around the waist, and hopefully that will allow the dress to drape a little better and then the sleeves to obviously kind of stay in place better as well. I also used a white silk lining on the inside. I think I mentioned that I did that for my last prototype. With my last prototype, I liked it, but then with this one, I'm not liking it as much. And the reason for that is because I'm actually trying to attach it, like hand sewing it to the bodice, and the material is just like way too thin and flimsy, and it's just not giving me like the stability that I need to finish that bottom seam. So because of that, I have decided that I'm going to just use the satin that I'm using for the outer shell for my lining piece as well. I've done that for a couple of dresses previously and there's been no problems with that, so I'm just gonna stick with that for now, and hopefully it will help me finish out the seams a lot easier. But let's get to sewing the final project. It's been a long time, so let's finish this out on a bang, hopefully, fingers crossed. So between the time from the last prototype, which was like that blue version, to now, I did try to sew a final dress in a green color, and I recorded the entire process, and then I realized at the end that my fabric twist just wasn't working with this type of dress. So for the prototype that I used, I think I used a crepe back satin, or like a more heavier satin that draped really well, so I couldn't really tell on my prototype. So then when I switched over to making like the final dress in the green color, I used a poly satin, which is kind of like this right here, super thin, not very heavy or anything, and I think it works really well for like linings and for more like slip dresses, but for a dress like this, I think it needs to be a little heavier so that it drapes well. And I was finding that on that last one, there was no drape and no flowiness. So that's why I am deciding to pivot now to work with this pink satin instead. But it's perfect because I have a formal next week that is black and pink themed, so I will definitely be wearing this dress to that, so hopefully I can finish it by then. But yeah, this is a poly satin, and then this is a crepe back satin. This one is a lot heavier. I don't know if you can really tell on camera. It's heavier, it's thicker, it flows so much nicer. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and make the dress with this satin. I'm really excited to work with it because I think it's super pretty. And as you can tell, I did finish the lining already with the poly satin that I had, but for this dress, I'll walk you guys through the entire process using this satin. All right, let's get started. So I got a new iron, and I don't know if you guys could tell, but I have like never used the steam on my other iron because I was kind of traumatized from it from the start because that iron leaked a lot. I mean, to be fair, it was a very cheap iron, but it would leak and get watermarks all over like my satins, and I vowed to just never use it again because I was just scared because I don't want watermarks on my satin. But I got a new iron and it works great, and the seam setting is not like broken and it doesn't leak on me. So I've been using the steamer a lot and it's been like a crazy game changer. Like in my last video when I was making the cotton shirt, like my boyfriend's like, oh, it was like the bed sheet upcycling video. I was like rewatching the footage when I was editing it. I was like, dang, it's super wrinkly. And a little steam would have helped it. So I'm glad I finally found a nice iron that works for me, but yeah, I feel like it's taken me way too long to upgrade, but I'm steaming now and it works great on my satins. It's crazy. Okay, so I have all of my pieces cut here, and I just kind of wanted to show you guys what's going on. So for the front and back pieces, there's 3 pieces total. So for the front bodice, we have this, which is obviously the bust piece, these pieces like this, and then this is the front middle piece, which was cut on the fold, and it goes like this, and it kind of attaches everything. So I'm going to first take these panels here and sew these together. And once we have one panel, we can then sew these side pieces together, and then it'll kind of create its own little crease here, and all we have to do is fold those over and then sew the bust piece to the whole entire panel. This fabric is super slippery. It was really hard to cut, and I left cutting the skirt for another day because I don't think that I am in the mood to deal with the skirt. Like, the skirt is already probably the worst part to cut anyway, so having to do that now is really not in my cards. Like, even the pins aren't really keeping it in place, I feel like. And it's also just like very easy to pin through. So that means I don't know if that just like means anything about like how it's woven. I don't really know much about fabrics. I'm trying to learn. It feels really nice and like heavy. I never sew with my pins in, but I feel like for this case, it might be for the best. I'm kind of nervous. I was like debating if I should have maybe used clips too, but I guess we'll see how this first run goes. I feel like I have to take out the pins. It's just super slippery. I feel like these pins aren't like even holding it in place. Okay, this fabric is super slippery. I don't know how I did with sewing, but I took it really slow. But I'm gonna just press it now first before I kind of gauge how I did. But it seems like that stitch length is fine, which is good. I don't need to make any adjustments with my tension or anything. I think with the stitches, it looks pretty good. Okay, I don't think it looks too bad. I think it looks pretty good, actually. I'm like really happy that I went with this satin right now. It is very hard to sew. This is definitely the most slippery fabric that I have worked with, but I think it's good because it'll teach me to be patient. Okay, now I'm going to sew on this next side. Alrighty, so here is what I have so far with these pieces sewn together. And now I'm gonna take the bust piece and sew them together at these seams normally. And then once I do this side, I'm gonna do this side as well. And then I'll show you guys where the magic happens. Okay, so I finished sewing basically the entire bodice except for this middle part. So this seam right here, we're gonna just fold it over and basically just align the seams right here, and then we'll just sew across. And when that is done, it's gonna make this seam here that kind of acts like our darts, which gives like the bust its shape. Also, it's kind of difficult to get this correct with this type of fabric because it's super thick and it doesn't really fold nicely if it's not on like its grain. So that's definitely something that I have to keep in mind. But also with the seam, it's like if you don't do it correctly, you might have a lot of like puckering here toward the bust instead of it looking like a nice dart. So, but I also do want to mention that I'm not going to be backstitching like a normal dart. Like I will just sew straight line and then I'll go ahead and tie the knots at the end to kind of help it sit a lot better. So yeah, let's do that. Alright, so here's the bodice piece on my dress form, and it looks so cute. I love this color. I think that the bust piece turned out really well. It did take me a couple of tries to like make sure it was even and stuff, but I think we finally got it. But yeah, so now we're gonna do the back bodice, and then we can connect the bodices at the side, and then we can go ahead and do the skirt after. Okay, and then for my back pieces, so they're obviously split into the back left and right side, but this is kind of what the pieces are made up of, and they connect like this to make the entire back piece. And I know the shaping looks kind of weird of this bottom piece here, but because this is like toward the bust area where it gets larger, when it drapes, it'll make sense on the body, but flat, it looks kind of weird. But yeah, so that is what I'm working with, and then we'll sew these pieces together. Okay, so I finished sewing the back bodice pieces, and this is what they look like. So I'm gonna go ahead and attach the side seams to the front bodice, so we have one full bodice. And yeah, I think that's all I'm gonna do for today, and then tomorrow I'll probably work on the actual skirt. I have to cut that out, which again, I'm really dreading. So I think that's a good stopping point for today. The hardest part about sewing this is honestly just making sure that the seams line up, because they both kind of go at like a diagonal. So when you're like trying to match the seam allowances, you can't match the seams to the seam, if that makes any sense, because they kind of cross like this. So the seam allowance seams won't match. So you kind of have to I kind of have to hold it in place at like the seam allowance and kind of just like keep checking back and forth, but I have redone the seams a couple of times on my prototypes just to make sure that they match, because if they don't match, I feel like it just doesn't make it look as clean and professional as it should. So anyway, this is my first go at it, so hopefully it goes well. I'm gonna remove my pins and see if it matched up. I don't know if it's like a problem with my patterning that they don't match up very nicely, but look at this. They like barely line up. It's off by like a little less than a fourth, but I have to redo that. Okay, here is the finished bodice. And here's the back. I am so happy with how this is turning out so far. I'm realizing how important fabric selection is. It's terrible that it's taken me this long, but I've been using like charmeuse satin my entire life, and I thought satin was satin. But clearly after using this crepe back satin, like it's made a world of a difference, and you can tell a lot with like the drape of the bodice. Yeah, I'm so happy. If you can tell, there's a lot of space down here, which is what I want by like this dropped waist, because I also do have a little bit like larger of like a hip area compared to the mannequin here, so that's perfect, and I'm just so happy. Okay, I'm excited for tomorrow, like dreading cutting the skirt still, but I'm excited to put it all together. This is the first time that I've ever cut fabric like this, and I feel like you're supposed to usually cut it this way, but I just never have a surface big enough. But with my skirt, I feel like cutting it with my scissors and like pinning down the pattern would have given me a more accurate cut than using my rotary cutter, especially with this fabric. So that's why I decided to cut it like this. I know I probably should have put way more pins like into my pattern in the fabric, but it was getting a little difficult, so. Okay, so I finished cutting my skirt pieces. It was actually pretty easy cutting it with the scissors instead. Don't know if I'm gonna do that more in the future, but if I work with like this type of fabric that's super heavy, then I probably will. But I'm gonna just iron this now, and we have to connect all of the skirt pieces together and I'm probably just gonna serge them. I think a French seam would be way too thick for this fabric, so I'm gonna serge all of the sides, and then I'll attach the bodice on after that. But I'm like loving how drapey this fabric is. Like I keep saying that, but like it makes such a big difference. And the other type of like the poly satin just like was not doing it. It wasn't giving the dress its full effect in my opinion, so. Okay, so while I'm finishing pinning up the skirt, I am gonna tell you guys about like the next hardest part about making this dress, which is it's like kind of like a reverse corner, I'd like to call it, for the dropped waist part. Like it always takes me like a couple of tries, and especially with the charmeuse satin, since it wasn't very like thick, I guess, and it was very like it held its shape like a little too well. It was always hard to like get it smooth. I don't know if anybody has like any tips for that, but I know I've been struggling with it, and I've been picking up like my needle every time and like holding my fabric in a way, but I feel like I always get some bunching. So I'm pretty curious to see how it's gonna go with this type of fabric instead. But with my last prototype, I did use a thicker satin material. It wasn't really like this satin. It was heavier though, on the heavier side. I don't know what type of satin it was. But I was actually able to do that reverse curve after like maybe the second try, and it looked perfect afterwards. So I don't know, hopefully the type of fabric will help me, but that's always like the most dreaded part, like is just attaching the bodice to the skirt. So hopefully all goes well, but you never know. I'm gonna do this close-up so that you guys can see what's going on, but it's honestly smooth sailing until we get to that first corner, so let's just do that because that's comfortable. Okay, so we're getting close to this corner here. I'm going to align the corner up to like the best of my ability and just close my eyes, honestly. Because the tendency of the fabric is that it wants to like kind of like curve up this way, so I'm going to try my best to do that, and also just make sure that none of the other skirt, because there's a lot of volume here, so I'm just going to try to make sure that this skirt isn't, yeah, not making any sense because this doesn't make sense to me. Okay, so I finished up until that point, and now I'm going to finish off this point on this side, like starting a new edge almost. Genuinely cannot tell if I did it or not. Oh my god, I'm like, I'm actually like freaking out. Okay, let's unpin this and reveal. Okay, it could have been worse. It's definitely not perfect, but I think it's an easy fix. So if you can tell, there's like a little divot right here, and that's because I think that the seam allowance is different here than it is like with the rest of the waist. So I think all I need to do is make the line of stitch a little bit closer, because there's so much more space here. But once I do that, I think it'll fix itself. Okay guys, I wouldn't say she's perfect, but she's pretty darn good. Like, I ironed out this part. There was still a little bit of like puckering, but I really don't think that I could fix it. And I tried like hand stitching it too to get it as close as possible, but this fabric is like draping pretty nicely, so I don't think it's that noticeable. But like, I'm so happy, like extremely happy. Here's how the back looks like. The skirt, the back skirt is definitely a little bit more voluminous than the front, but hopefully it's not too obvious. Super cute. I will also say that this isn't as voluminous as like the inspiration. I think this is more like kind of a subtle skirt, but I knew it was going to be hard if I made the front a little too voluminous, because like even now I'm already struggling with attaching this waist here with this amount of volume, so I think a little more would have been a little much. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is serge the entire back part here, and then we can attach the lining and the straps, and then I'll attach the zipper after. But I love how this turned out. I'm so happy right now. Yay! Okay, before I attach the lining, I have to make the straps first. So I'm just taking my 2 strips here and doing my best to iron them in half. And I'm going to sew with about a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then I also have this small strip here that we're going to do the same for. We're on my bed now because this is like the only surface that I feel like I can do this on. But I have my dress here now, and then I also have my lining. And with the lining, I finished it with bias tape at the bottom, and that's going to be really helpful for when we hand sew this to the actual dress. And then finally, I have my straps here with the adjustable sliders and everything already attached, and I'm probably going to go ahead and stay stitch these maybe first before. So once I stay stitch these straps, I'm gonna also go ahead and attach the lining through the neckline here, but since we need to attach the zipper, I'm gonna leave about 1 inch on both sides where I haven't sewn it yet. I've stayed stitched the straps, so let's pin the neckline here together, right sides. Okay, so the lining is attached, and I am going to go ahead and understitch this, but I don't think I will right now. I'm gonna go ahead and attach the zipper on the back, and then I'll report back. But I don't think I'm gonna film that because I'm always stressed doing zippers, but so far so good. I think that once we like understitch everything, it's gonna look even better. All right, let's attach the zipper. Okay, so I put the zipper on the dress, and it looks great on my mannequin. I haven't understitched this yet, so don't mind that. It looks great on the mannequin. On me, I'm having the same problem as I did on my prototype, even though I adjusted the panels to make the waist a little bigger. I don't know if it's like just the design of the dress but it doesn't look very flattering on me because it's so tight around my hips. So anyway, so my pivot is, I think I'm gonna do what the original dress design had, which was a corset loop back. So I'm gonna get rid of this zipper, and I'll probably just go ahead and close it off where I initially wanted to close off the skirt, so starting from here down. And then the rest of this, I'll kind of just like finish it within the lining, and then I'll add grommets to it. I think that's probably the best course of action because the zipper is just not cutting it, and it's just not giving me like enough room around my waist. So I'm gonna do that and then hope for the best. So yeah, let me remove this zipper and we'll figure it out after. I'm not gonna lie, it's been a minute since I filmed this project, so I'm not quite sure where I left off. But basically, from what I remembered, I put on like the dress and it was still really tight around the hips with the zipper. And so what I ended up doing was just kind of leaving it as an open back, and I was gonna add like a modesty panel and do a corset loop up in the back, since the closing of the skirt was like kind of in the middle of like my butt area, and I thought that like I couldn't close that because it would be too tight, because a lot of the tightness was like around my like waist area. But then I experimented and I actually just closed the dress all the way up to basically before the dropped waist ends, and it actually ended up fitting. Like, it's a little tight, but not as tight as with the zipper for some reason. I'm not quite sure why. Very interesting. But then I just like left the rest of the back open, and now I'm gonna add grommets to it, and hopefully that will be the last part that I have to work on the dress besides hemming. So let me bring my dress form over here so I can show you guys what it looks like. Okay, so here is my dress, and I'm gonna show you guys the back bodice here, and you can tell this part is open, and this is the part that I was worried about it being too tight around, but like I said, when I closed the seam, it seemed fine. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this off with a with just like grommets all along the bottom here. What I did to add more stability was basically just top stitch right here the lining and the shell together so that I could put the piece of boning in. So there is a piece of boning in these right now, so it'll give the dress a lot more structure when I add the grommets. I have been doing a terrible job at filming because I've just been kind of working on it like as I went throughout my day. Like, I would work on it for like 10 minutes here, 30 minutes there. So it was kind of hard to pull out the camera, so I apologize for that. But I promise that I will film the entire process from here on out. So I'll go ahead and attach the grommets now, and we'll do a fit check after and see how it looks. Okay, please do not use this as a tutorial, but I'm going to show you guys me putting on an eyelet. So these are the blue markings that I made here, and I'm basically just going to punch a hole right in the middle of that. And I just have this like fabric hole puncher that I got off of like Amazon, and I'm going to be using like a piece of index card. You could just use like any thicker paper that you have. And the reason why I'm doing this is because it makes a more stable base for the fabric to like be hole punched. So have it here. I'm gonna punch. I don't know if it's just like this type of fabric, but I never get like a clean cut, so I have to go in with my embroidery scissors here and just finish off the rest of the circle. And I'm gonna take one of my eyelet pieces, so it's like these bigger ones, put that down, and make sure that my wrong side is up here, and I'm gonna put this through the hole and make sure that every piece of the metal is out of the hole. And then I'll put this piece over, flat piece over, push it down, and then I'll take this piece that my eyelet kit came with, and I'm literally just gonna hammer it down. And now we have an eyelet. So yeah, it's pretty simple. It's just very repetitive, and I'm sure my neighbors are gonna hate me after this, but I'm gonna finish up the rest of the eyelets, and then we can do a true fit test on this after. don't know why this keeps happening to me, but my mic is not working in this clip, and here's the try on. Basically, I was just talking about how it was still pretty tight around my waist. You can really see my stomach in this dress, which honestly didn't bother me that much, so I just ended up going with it anyway. But I still, at this point, needed to stitch the lining to the actual dress, so that's why you can see some of it kind of crinkling behind the actual dress. I also ended up showing you guys the back of the dress. I ended up using a closure, just using ribbon, and I was able to close it all the way from the bottom. I know you could see like a little bit of my underwear on this, but I promise during the day of the dance you couldn't see it at all, so it worked out, and honestly it was so for me. Okay, the next thing to do is to hem my dress. So I'm just gonna take my ruler basically, and I haven't decided on how many inches I'm taking off yet, but I'm thinking at least 3 from like the ground. So I'm just using this and literally leveling it to the ground and then just making marks all around, and then I'll cut afterwards. Something that I noticed when I was trying on the dress was that it kind of looked like the neckline was gaping, but I think that's because the fabric was stretching. I totally should have basted or added interfacing, and I guess I just didn't realize I needed to. This is the first time I've worked with like crepe satin, and it's much like, I don't know, it's different than like polyester satin. I think polyester satin holds its shape better. This one, on the other hand, is a lot more like flowy, so I feel like that kind of messed with like the drape of the neckline, but it's like way too late for me to do anything about it because I should have either added fusible interfacing or basted it or something. But yeah, I'm a little sad about that. Now I know like I have to remake this dress. That's how I feel after like every project. Is like there's always one thing that I need to fix. But yeah, so I'm a little bummed about that, but my formal's tomorrow and I'm sure no one's gonna notice but me. Anyway, let's get to hemming this. Okay, so I went ahead and just serged the bottom edge, and now I'm just gonna fold it over once. I did not have it in me to do a French, or not a French seam, a double folded hem. So this is the best I'm gonna get. Alright you guys, this leads to the end of the video. I promise I have a reveal. I'll go ahead and put in some pictures right now with the dress that I wore to formal. It turned out really cute. I'm really happy with it. I will say that I did have a malfunction that night and my straps did break off. So clearly I did not attach them well enough. Also, hence why I don't have my dress form out here showing you guys the dress. But I think it turned out great. I will say, obviously, a couple things I wish went a little bit better was how tight it was around my waist. You can see my belly button imprint in like every photo, which honestly, like, no shame. I didn't care that much about it for me not to wear the dress. But yeah, clearly there was like some tightness around my waist. So if I were to have revised that, that's what I would have done. The second thing I would have redone was I should have stabilized the neckline. I didn't realize that it started to stretch until like when I was hemming the dress, and it caused some gaping at like the front area, and I was like, wait, I thought I fixed that. And I did fix it, but I didn't stabilize it. I should have put some like interfacing on, even just stay stitching the neckline or something so that it would keep its shape a little bit better. But yeah, so that's definitely another thing I would have changed. But other than that, I think this was a great project. It obviously took me a lot longer than I thought it would. You can see my nails go through like 3 different color changes throughout the entire video, so I thought that was really funny. But yeah, I'm glad to have another from scratch project under my belt because I think I learned a lot from the designing process, and like I mentioned, I learned how to digitize through this, so I thought that was really fun. But yeah, if you guys have any questions or any comments or anything, definitely let me know. I'm sorry it took me so long to roll out this video, but I'm hopefully going to get back into it now that I have a little bit more free time. But I also do want to acknowledge that yes, the dress wasn't a perfect replica, but honestly the bodice is what I was kind of looking for. I can totally acknowledge that the like corset back was completely different than the original, and also that the skirt did not nearly have as much fullness as the original, but Clearly I wasn't paying very much attention to details, especially when I started working on a time crunch, but next time if I do a replicating a style video, hopefully I'll do it a little better than this time. But either way, I really enjoyed the project and I hope you guys did too. But yeah, that is everything. Let me know if you guys have any questions or suggestions or anything of that sort. I'd love to hear it. I hope to see you guys in the next video.